My wife cheated with our financial advisor, stealing $200, $0 from our joint account, and then convinced me to sign over our family home worth $350, $0. Now she's suing me for half, and I just found out she was planning to leave me for the accountant all along. I never thought I'd be the guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am. The craziest part. It all came crashing down when I found out my wife, Lisa, had been cheating on me with our financial advisor, of all people. And not just cheating. She stole $250,000 from our joint account, convinced me to sign over our family home, and was planning to leave me for the accountant all along. I still can't wrap my head around how I missed all the signs or how she managed to pull this off right under my nose. Lisa and I had been married for 10 years. We had our issues, sure, but I thought we were solid. She's always been a bit bitchy, quick to throw tantrums, dismiss my concerns as overreacting, and she's got that sharp tongue that can cut you in half. Still, I loved her. Or at least I thought I did. We had 2 kids, a mortgage, a decent life. I worked hard as a project manager at a construction company, and she stayed home with the kids. We weren't rich, but we got by, or so I thought. Looking back, I realized there were little things that didn't sit right for months. She started acting distant, secretive with her phone, deleting texts like she was trying to hide something. She'd stay late at book club, but I'd catch her sneaking out to meet someone. She'd get defensive if I asked about her whereabouts, saying I was paranoid or insecure. She'd blow up at me for no reason, call me controlling if I questioned her. The usual stuff, but I brushed it off as stress or her period or whatever. Then, a couple of weeks ago, I noticed the bank account activity. Normally, I just glance at the statements, but this time, I saw a huge withdrawal, $200, gone. I thought it was some investment or maybe a new business venture she was hiding from me. But when I looked closer, I saw it was transferred to an account under the name Michael. Our financial advisor. That's when my stomach dropped. I called the bank first, trying to get answers. They told me the transfer was authorized by Lisa herself, using her online banking credentials. That was the first real shock. I couldn't believe she'd do something so reckless, so blatantly illegal. When I confronted her about it, she just shrugged, said she was dealing with some investments she didn't want to bother me with, said I was overreacting, paranoid again. That's her usual line, blame me for doubting her, call me insecure. But I knew something was wrong. I decided to dig deeper. I got access to her phone and emails. That's when I found the real bombshell. She'd been planning her escape for months. There were emails between her and Michael, clearly more than just client and advisor. They'd been meeting in secret, talking about their future, and she'd even sent him pictures of the house, asking about how they could make their move. I found texts where she was convincing him she'd leave me, that she wanted a fresh start with him. And the worst part, she convinced me to sign over the house, our family home, worth around $350. Thinking it was for some investment opportunity to increase our wealth. I didn't even realize she was planning to leave me until I saw the email where she was discussing how she'd get half of everything once she filed for divorce. That moment hit me like a freight train. My wife, the woman I trusted, was actively screwing me over with our financial advisor, planning to walk away with everything. I felt sick, betrayed, angry. How could she lie so easily? How could she manipulate me into signing away our home? And the worst part, she had no remorse. She kept spinning stories, saying I was overreacting, that I was paranoid and possessive. She told me I was lucky to have her, that I should be grateful she was still with me after all the chaos. Yeah, right. Grateful for her screwing me over and planning to leave me with nothing. That's when I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this. Not just the money, but the betrayal, the lies, the way she had played me like a fool. I started planning my next move, knowing I'd have to be smart. I couldn't confront her directly yet. She was too good at covering her tracks. Instead, I decided to gather evidence, lawyer up, and figure out how to get my money back and protect what was left of my life. I won't lie, it's been a roller coaster. One minute I'm furious, the next I'm devastated. I keep asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let her manipulate me so easily. I keep replaying the moments I should have seen it coming, the little clues I ignored. But what really sticks with me is the feeling of betrayal, like she'd been planning this whole time, right under my nose, while I was working my ass off to keep our family afloat. I don't know how this is going to end, but I do know one thing: I'll never trust her again. And I'll make sure she pays for what she's done, one way or another. After I found out everything, I honestly didn't sleep for days. My mind kept racing, trying to piece together how she pulled this off without me noticing. Lisa had always been good at hiding her feelings, but I never thought she'd go this far. The betrayal cut deep. Not just because of the money, but because she lied to my face for months, played me like a fool, and was planning her escape all along. At first I was furious, rage boiling inside me, a burning desire to confront her and demand answers. But I knew I had to be smart about it. I couldn't just blow up and ruin everything. So I started gathering evidence. I went through her emails, her texts, her bank statements. I even installed a hidden app on her phone just in case. I needed proof, something solid I could take to a lawyer. It was sickening how calculated she was. She'd been meeting Michael in secret, exchanging messages late at night, talking about their future. I saw emails where she discussed how she'd take the house, split the money, and start fresh with him. She was planning her getaway, and I was just a pawn in her game. I also discovered that she'd convinced me to sign over our house under the pretense of refinancing it for better investment opportunities. She told me it was to increase our savings, that it was for the best. Looking back, I realized she'd been planting the seeds of her plan for months. She knew exactly what she was doing, how to manipulate me into signing away our biggest asset. I still can't believe I let her do it. The hardest part was confronting her face to face for the first time after all this. I called her at work and told her I needed to talk. She was bitchy as always, snapping that I was being paranoid, that I was accusing her of things she didn't do. But I knew better now. I told her I had evidence of her affair, that I knew about the money, about her plan to leave me. Her face went white for a second, then she started lying like crazy, saying I was jealous, that she was just talking to Michael about her career, that I was imagining things. She even said I was controlling her and that I was just insecure. That's her usual tactic: deny, deny, deny. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I was done being a fool. I told her I was going to lawyer up, get a restraining order if I had to, and fight her for what's rightfully mine. Her reaction was classic. She screamed, called me crazy, said I was ruining everything, that she loved me and this was all just a misunderstanding. Yeah, right. She's always been good at spinning stories, but I could see the panic in her eyes now. She knew I was onto her. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I kept thinking about the years we wasted, her lies, her betrayal. I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner, and I was heartbroken because I still loved her, even if she didn't deserve it anymore. I'd lost my trust, my sense of security, and my future, all because she'd chosen to chase after some sleazy accountant instead of being honest with me. I started questioning everything. Was our whole marriage a lie? Did she ever love me, or was I just some idiot who believed her? The more I thought about it, the more I realized she'd been planning her exit for a long time. She'd always been bitchy, yes, but her anger now felt different, more calculated, more ruthless. She'd been preparing to burn everything down and walk away with her lover. That realization hit me hard. I knew I couldn't just sit around feeling sorry for myself. I had to take action. The first step was finding a good lawyer, someone who specialized in divorce and asset recovery. I also reached out to a financial expert to see if I could recover some of the stolen money. I wasn't naive. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to fight for what was mine. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act. She kept pretending everything was fine, that I was overreacting, that I was crazy for suspecting her. She told the kids I was being difficult and played the victim. She's always been good at that, making everyone feel sorry for her while she's busy screwing everyone over. I knew her well enough now to see through her lies. She's a manipulative bitch who thought she could get away with everything. But I wasn't going down without a fight. Not this time. Every day since then has been a blur of legal meetings, emotional exhaustion, and trying to keep my head straight. I want justice. I want my money back, and I want my life to be mine again. I never imagined I'd be this position, but here I am. The one thing I do know is that trust is gone, completely shattered, and I'll never let her do this again, no matter what. After I made the decision to fight back, everything started moving fast. I hired a lawyer, someone sharp, experienced in divorce and asset recovery. The first thing we did was get a freeze on the accounts. I needed to stop her from draining anything else or hiding assets. I also tipped off a private investigator to track her movements. I didn't trust her one bit anymore. The more I dug, the more I realized she'd been planning this for months, maybe even longer. While all this was happening, Lisa kept up her act. She'd come home, put on the fake smile, act like everything was normal. But I could see through her. Her eyes were colder, her lies more desperate. Tell me she was going out to meet friends, but I knew she was meeting Michael, planning her escape. She accused me of being paranoid, say I was jealous, that I was just insecure. Yeah, she's good at spinning stories, but I wasn't buying it anymore. One night I found her. Phone left out on the kitchen table. I couldn't resist. I grabbed it, unlocked it with the passcode I'd learned, her birthday, of course, and scrolled through her messages. There were dozens of texts between her and Michael, some explicit, some just about meeting up. They'd been talking about how her plan was coming together, how she'd leave me with nothing. I saw pictures she'd sent him of the house, the kids' rooms, even our wedding album. It was like I was slapped in the face all over again. She was serious about leaving me, and she'd been lying to my face the entire time. The confrontation that night was brutal. I told her I knew everything, about the affair, about the money, about her plan to walk away. She snapped at me, said I was crazy, that I was making things up, that I was jealous and possessive. She shouted, told me I was ruining our family, that she loved me but I just didn't see it. I asked her how she could lie so easily, how she could steal from us and then pretend everything was fine. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk and said she was doing what she had to do, that I was just too blind to see her side. Honestly, I felt like I was losing my mind. All these years I worked so hard to build a life for us, and she was planning to take it all away. That's when I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about her complete disregard for me, for us, for everything we built. I was furious, but I knew I had to stay calm. I told her I was calling the police and my lawyer. That's when she got even more defensive, saying I was ruining her life, that she deserves better, that I was holding her back. The next few days were a whirlwind. I met with my lawyer, who laid out the options. We could file for divorce, seek full custody of the kids, and most importantly, try to recover the stolen money. I also contacted the bank to see if we could trace the transfers and freeze her assets. Meanwhile, Lisa was trying to spin everything, calling me crazy, accusing me of betraying her, trying to turn the kids against me. It was like she was trying to control the narrative, but I could see through her. She's always been good at manipulation, but I was done falling for her lies. I started to feel a mix of anger, sadness, and determination. The betrayal cut so deep it was almost physical. I kept thinking about all the sacrifices I made, all the late nights, the weekends away for work, just to give her a good life. And she was out there, screwing around, stealing from us, plotting her escape. It's like I was living in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from, but I refused to let her win. I was going to fight for what's rightfully mine, my home, my money, my dignity. I also realized I'd have to be prepared for her to try to lie her way out of everything. She's always been a bitchy, manipulative person, and I knew she'd do everything she could to keep her secrets hidden. But I had proof now: texts, emails, bank statements. She was caught red-handed. The worst part was knowing she'd been planning this for months, maybe even years. She'd been sneaking around, lying, stealing, and I didn't even see it coming. Now I'm sitting here waiting for the legal process to unfold, trying to keep my head together. Every time I think about her, I get this sick feeling in my stomach. I keep asking myself how I could have been so blind, how I missed all the signs. But part of me also feels relief. Relief that I finally know the truth, and that I'm not just some fool being played. I'm ready to fight for what's mine, no matter how ugly it gets. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that betrayal like this doesn't just hurt, it changes everything. The days that followed were a blur of legal appointments, calls, and trying to keep a semblance of normalcy for the kids. I remember sitting in my lawyer's office, watching her flip through the documents I brought, proof of the emails, texts, bank statements. She looked up at me and said, "This is serious. Your wife has been planning this for quite some time. We need to act fast if we want to recover some of the assets and prevent her from hiding anything further." I nodded, feeling both relief and dread. Relief that I finally had concrete evidence, and dread because I knew this was just the beginning of what was going to be an ugly fight. I also called the bank again to get the freeze on the accounts extended. They confirmed that Lisa's account was flagged for suspicious activity, and they were working with the police and regulators to trace the money. I asked about the $200, $0 she transferred to Michael's account. Turns out, they'd already begun investigating that too. The bank told me they'd try to recover as much as possible, but I knew the odds weren't in my favor. The fact that she transferred such a large sum meant she had a plan to hide or spend it before I could get a grip on things. Meanwhile, Lisa was still trying to keep her composure. She'd come home, put on that fake bitchy smile, and act like everything was fine. But I saw the cracks. The desperation in her eyes, the way she'd snap at the kids or lash out at me over small things. She was trying to control the situation, but I could tell she was unraveling. She'd always been bitchy and manipulative, but now her mask was slipping. She was scared, and honestly, I was glad to see it. For so long, I'd been the one trying to hold everything together, and now it felt like the universe was giving me a break, showing me her true colors. One evening, I caught her trying to delete some messages on her phone. I snuck a peek while she was in the bathroom. There were more texts with Michael, even some that hinted she was planning to leave in the next few days. She told him she was getting everything in order and that she'd be free soon. That was the moment I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her run away with everything. Not just the money, but the house, the kids' stability, everything. I decided to confront her again, this time more directly. I called her into the living room, played her the recordings I'd made of her conversations with Michael, showed her the bank statements, the emails. Her face turned white. She tried to deny everything, said I was crazy, that I was spying, that I was jealous. But I wasn't backing down anymore. I told her I was going to take her to court, that I was filing for divorce and seeking full custody of the kids. I also warned her that I was going to make sure she paid back every penny she stole, and that I'd expose her for the manipulative bitch she'd become. Her reaction was pure bitchy deflection. She started crying, saying I was ruining her life, that I was abusive for accusing her of all this. She told me she loved me, but I knew better now. Love doesn't cheat, steal, and betray. I saw her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative woman who only cared about herself. She kept claiming she'd been forced into this, that Michael was her savior, that she'd never loved me anymore. I just sat there, feeling numb. It was like watching someone else's life fall apart, even though it was my own. I knew I'd have to prepare for the worst. She'd be trying to hide assets, lie under oath, do whatever it took to keep her new life intact. I couldn't let her get away with it. I started making a timeline of everything she'd done. When she met Michael, how she transferred the money, what she said in her emails. I even hired a private investigator to follow her and see if she was trying to dump her assets or move out of the state. The more I learned, the more I realized how deep her treachery went. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. Honestly, I felt betrayed beyond words. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let her manipulate me so easily. I was angry at her, but also angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. I'd always thought I was a good husband, hardworking, reliable, honest, but I guess I was just blind. She'd been planning her escape and I was just a pawn in her game. It hurt to admit that, but it also fueled my resolve to fight back. I wasn't going to be a victim here. I was going to do everything in my power to get justice, financially, emotionally, legally. The coming days would be critical. I knew she'd try to lie her way out of everything, but I had evidence now. I'd make sure the truth came out. I'd protect what was left of my family, and I'd make her pay for what she'd done. I'd learned that sometimes trust is A fragile thing, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. But I was determined to rebuild my life, even if it meant starting over from scratch. Because no one, not even my wife, was going to destroy me without a fight. The legal battle was draining, but I knew I couldn't afford to back down. Every day I was pushing harder, meeting with lawyers, digging for more evidence, coordinating with the bank and the investigators. I started to realize how deep her lies went. She'd been planning this for months, maybe even years, and I was just the last piece in her scheme. The more I uncovered, the more furious I became. She had played me for a fool, convinced me to sign over our house based on her lies, and now she was trying to make me look like the bad guy. One morning, I received a call from my lawyer. She told me that Lisa was trying to file a lawsuit for half of everything: the house, the savings, even some of my retirement accounts. I knew she was desperate, trying to claw her way back into a life she'd already planned to leave behind. I sat there stunned, feeling a mix of anger and helplessness. How dare she try to take what's rightfully mine? How could she be so manipulative, so cold? I felt like I was fighting a ghost, someone who was already gone, yet still trying to hold on to what she didn't deserve. I started to prepare my response. I gathered all the evidence I had: the emails, the bank statements, the recordings. I had a feeling she'd do everything possible to spin the story, to convince the court that I was the one at fault. So I made sure my side was airtight. I worked with my lawyer on the filings, preparing to prove that she'd been dishonest from the start. I also hired a forensic accountant to trace the money she stole and to help recover it. I wasn't just fighting for the house or the money. I was fighting to clear my name. Meanwhile, Lisa was still trying to manipulate the situation. She played the victim in front of the kids, crying and saying I was trying to ruin everything, that I was abusive, and that she just wanted to be happy again. She told the kids she was doing what's best for us, which was a blatant lie. I knew she was trying to turn them against me, to make me look like the bad guy, but I also knew I had to stay calm, keep my composure, and let the evidence speak for itself. One day I caught her trying to hide more assets. She opened a secret account in her sister's name, transferring some of the stolen money. I found out because the private investigator tipped me off. I confronted her again and she snapped. She called me paranoid, jealous, and said I was crazy for suspecting her. But I had proof now, more than enough to show she'd been lying all along. I told her I was going to expose everything and that she wouldn't get away with it. The emotional toll was immense. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted. I kept replaying the moments I missed, asking myself how I let her get away with so much. I still loved her, or at least I thought I did, but that love was turning into disgust. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations, they all added up to a picture I didn't recognize. I realized I'd been living with a master manipulator, someone who would do anything to get her way, even if it meant destroying everything I'd worked for. But I refused to give up. I knew I had to fight for my rights and for my future. I pushed harder, working with my lawyer to build a strong case. I wanted to make sure she paid for her betrayal, financially and emotionally. I also started to think about my own healing. I knew I couldn't undo what had been done, but I could choose how to move forward. I could either let her ruin me, or I could pick myself up and rebuild. And honestly, I was leaning towards the latter. The biggest challenge now was the court date. I had to be ready to face her lies head-on, to prove that she'd been deceitful from the start. I had to show the judge that I was the victim of her manipulations, and that she'd stolen from us and plotted to leave. I knew it wouldn't be easy. She'd do everything possible to spin her story, to make me look like the villain. But I also knew I had the truth on my side. I just had to be strong enough to fight for it. As I sat in that courtroom, waiting for the judge to call our case, I felt a strange calm. I'd been through hell, but I was ready. I'd faced betrayal, lies, and theft, and I was still standing. I realized that no matter what happened next, I'd learned a lot about trust, betrayal, and resilience. And I knew, deep down, I'd come out of this stronger. Because sometimes, the only way to truly move on is to fight for what's right, even if it feels like the world is against you. The court day finally arrived, and I remember feeling like I was walking into a war zone. All my evidence was laid out: emails, bank statements, recordings, everything to prove she'd been lying from the start. Lisa sat across from me, her bitchy smirk gone, replaced by a nervous, almost desperate look. She tried to act confident, but I could see her trembling just beneath the surface. The judge listened carefully as my lawyer presented the case, pointing out every lie, every manipulation, every dollar she stole. When it was her turn to speak, Lisa spun her usual story, claiming she was forced into everything, that I was abusive, that she only did it because she was desperate for love. She looked right at the judge and said she never wanted to hurt me, that she loved me deep down, and that she was only trying to find her happiness. I felt a mixture of disgust and pity. She was still trying to manipulate, still trying to spin her web of lies, but I knew the truth was staring right at her. The judge finally made his ruling after what felt like hours. He ordered Lisa to pay back every cent she stole, including interest. He granted me full custody of the kids, recognizing the emotional and financial damage she'd caused. And most importantly, he declared the transfer of the house invalid, ruling that I was the rightful owner. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a strange sense of relief that I'd finally won this battle. It wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, my sanity. Lisa burst into tears, trying to plead her case, but it was too late. The judge had made his decision. As I left the courtroom, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief, because I was finally free from her manipulations. Sadness, because I knew the scars of this betrayal would stay with me for a long time. I looked at my kids and realized how much they needed stability now more than ever. I promised myself I'd do everything I could to give them a better future, free from lies, betrayal, and manipulation. In the weeks that followed, I worked tirelessly to rebuild my life. I got my finances in order, made new plans for the future, and focused on healing. I cut ties with Lisa completely. No more calls, no more texts, no more pretending everything was okay. I wanted nothing to do with her manipulative bitchiness anymore. The trust was gone, but I was determined to move on, to find happiness again on my own terms. Looking back, I realize how much I've learned from all this. Trust is fragile and can be broken in an instant if you're not careful. Never ignore the small signs: secretive behavior, sudden changes in attitude, lying about little things, because those are often the warning signs of something much worse. Most of all, I learned that no matter how much you love someone, if they're willing to betray you, steal from you, and lie to your face, it's better to stand up for yourself and fight back. No one deserves to be a victim of betrayal, especially not when it's coming from someone you trusted with your entire life. This experience has changed me forever. I see the world differently now, more cautious, more aware. But I also see that resilience is possible. That even after the worst betrayal, you can pick yourself up, rebuild, and find happiness again. I don't know what's next for me, but I do know I'll never let someone manipulate or betray me like that again. I'll always trust my instincts, listen to the small red flags, and never forget that sometimes the biggest betrayals come from those closest to us. And to anyone else going through something similar, stay strong. Gather your evidence, seek help, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Because at the end of the day, you deserve a life built on honesty, respect, and integrity. Don't settle for less.